5. The meaning of risk medicine. Medical Report Number 4, written June the 22nd, 1976. An aspect of the current malpractice crisis, which many neglect, is the fact that, with some notable exceptions, it is all too often the better doctors who get sued. But this is not all. Malpractice suits are in particular an American phenomenon to a large degree. This does not mean that Americans are more prone to litigation than other peoples by any means. In some areas, Americans are indeed more prone to litigation than are other peoples, and one of these is medical practice. But this is not true in all areas, nor is it true in all parts of the United States. For example, one California doctor has a malpractice insurance fee of $26,000, whereas an urban doctor of comparable age and practice in another state pays less than $400. Malpractice suits are rare in the second state and common in California. Why? Certainly, there is no residential neurosis which turns Californians, most of whom were born in other states, into a litigation-oriented people. Since World War II began, the population of California has quadrupled because of the heavy influx of people from other states. Thus, a very high percentage of the people suing doctors are ex-residents of the East, South and Midwest. What is the connection, then, between malpractice suits and California? In order to understand the relationship, let us remember, first of all, that American medicine is, on the whole, still the freest of any nation of consequence today. We can and must regret and oppose the steady encroachment of statist controls over men in every area of life, including medicine. But we cannot deny the great measures of freedom which we still enjoy. American medicine is in process of being socialized, but as it still exists, it is the product of freedom and enjoys a measure of freedom still. A second fact about American medicine is that it is the most innovative. Whether in surgery, drugs, or other fields of practice, American medicine has manifested a high degree of enterprise, initiative, and advance. American doctors who study or travel abroad find here and there examples of a high excellence and pioneering practice, but by and large, the leadership remains with American medical practice. Many may contest this fact, but the practical situation is this. A regular stream of foreign dignitaries and personages do come quietly to the United States in order to consult a doctor or undergo surgery. There is, moreover, an American predisposition to the innovative, which is a stimulus to innovation in every area of life, thought, and activity. Americans believe in progress. They demand development and improvement. Foreigners who reside in the United States for a time are startled by the American appetite for innovation and progress. However Americans may indulge in a nostalgia for the past or talk about a yearning for simple living, when they act and spend their dollars, they demand innovation and progress. This temper is no less true in medicine than in any other area. It is commonplace to hear Americans express the hope and belief that a new drug or a new treatment will eliminate this or that disease or condition in a few years. Americans demand progress and victory in every area of life, including medicine. A common question asked of doctors is some variation of this. Will they have a new drug or treatment soon to take care of my condition? Third, this demand for innovation and progress means that American medicine is the most vulnerable of any, because it continually moves out on a high-risk frontier. People are not ignorant of the fact that new drugs often have serious side effects. World War II stimulated a vast amount of emergency surgical and drug innovations, and it was obvious then that new drugs can cause trouble. The idea that the drug companies represent a vicious conspiracy on the public, working to foist improperly tested drugs on them for a quick profit, is a false one. This does not mean that the testing programs of the drug companies are sound ones, nor does it deny that improper testing occurs. The central fact is that Americans demand innovative medicine, including new drugs, and the drug companies cannot survive if they fail to meet this demand. More than a few doctors have told me that many of their patients would best be served by a simple prescription, rest and sleep, and at best an aspirin tablet or two as well. But patients demand more. They are unwilling to believe that simple health care is the best remedy. They want a miracle pill. For example, heart patients are commonly told to lose weight and exercise, as well as to take some prescribed medicine. What such patients do most faithfully is to take the pill. The rest is gradually forgotten by many. Americans have more faith in innovative medicine than in sensible healthcare. Doctors do not create this condition or frame of mind. Most speak against it, but it prevails. As a result, doctors are highly vulnerable. Most Americans, where their health is concerned, are guilty of consistent malpractice in taking care of themselves. They are totally tolerant of their lifetime health malpractice and yet highly intolerant of an occasional real or imagined malpractice by a doctor. They forgive every kind of health malpractice in themselves, and they forgive nothing in doctors. Modern man wants salvation in a pill or in a treatment. I can recall all too many occasions over the years when men, for example, have become greatly excited or hopeful because some new treatments would have supposedly restored their lost potency and made them nearly young again. Thus, this American love for innovation and progress has, on the one hand, made American medicine highly prone to advance and success, and on the other, highly vulnerable to intense disappointment, disillusionment, untested resources, and malpractice suits. American medicine has a proneness to experiments, which means both dramatic advances and sometimes disappointments. Fourth, we must now turn to California. From 1940 on to the present, a remote American state has become the most populous one. It has, during those years, experienced a great burst of prosperity. It has also been marked by an aura of confidence, optimism, and generosity. Fundraisers look to California as a prime area of giving. Workers up till now have received better pay in California, whether farm workers or hospital employees. The newer Californian hospitals have tried to make their rooms have an air of restfulness and hints of a holiday rest. Californians have developed an intolerance for failure, defeat, or anything but the best. Prosperity has created a strong vein of perfectionism and a rebellion against anything else. The readiness to innovation is greater in California than elsewhere, and hand in hand there goes a readiness to complain and protest against anything short of the imagined perfection. As a result, Californians make a very heavy demand on their doctors, consult them very frequently, depend upon them, and also sue them. Moreover, this mentality is not restricted to Californians. They are merely ahead of others in manifesting it and acting on it. The result, of course, is that this mentality frustrates the very thing it most wants, innovative medicine. In all too many cases where a short time ago doctors took risks and often saved lives, they now take two courses. They refer the patient to another doctor, who may himself do something as evasive, or else they terminate hope by taking no chances. In a short time, I've encountered several instances where doctors have simply refused to attempt risky surgeries or treatments of seriously ill patients because the dangers of failure and malpractice suits were too great. But risk is basic to medical progress. Whether people like it or not, it is precisely the risky cases which so often prompt medical progress. Even more, wars have been an unequal stimulus to medical progress. During wartime, doctors in the armed forces have been required to perform risky surgeries and experiment with drugs and techniques in an unprecedented way. Wars, with all their horrors, have as a beneficial byproduct medical progress. This does not justify a war. What it means is simply that risk medical practice is basic to medical advance. Many elderly people, as well as young, are today able to walk and function normally because of orthopedic advances made in recent wars. Doctors serving on a war duty have an opportunity to see in a short span of time a variety of medical emergencies most doctors never see in a lifetime. As a result, a remarkable amount of improvisation Innovation and high-risk medical practice is routine. The world came out of World War II with worse problems than those facing it in 1939, bad as those were. Neither Korea nor Vietnam has eased our world crisis. However, we have come out of those wars with notable medical advances. Not only countless war veterans, but untold numbers of civilians are alive today only because of the new developments made possible by the high-risk medical practice of wartime medicine. There is, of course, a difference between wartime and peacetime practice. A common factor remains, however. It is risk medicine which more often saves lives and which makes medical progress possible. Where risk medicine is abolished, medical advance is also abolished. As a result, whether by malpractice suits or by socialist controls, where risk medicine is inhibited or ended, their medical progress is also inhibited or ended. Risk medicine is then also banished, in effect, to either slave labour camps or to prisons, and it accomplishes little in either because it is also increasingly dehumanised. Innovative medicine does mean sometimes dangerous as well as risky medical practice. Innovative practice can lead to sometimes good and sometimes bad results. To deny the right of the one is to deny the right of the other. Criminal practice is one thing. Risk medicine is radically different. Malpractice suits, the Food and Drug Administration, some hospitals and some medical societies are all saying to both, whether they recognise it or not, that they are the same. However, a society which wants good innovations and no risks is asking for the impossible. It is denying the freedom to progress. It is saying, in effect, that there must be heaven only and no possibility of hell. To deny the possibility of failure is to deny the reality of success. This attitude is the same as that fostered by, quote, progressive education, unquote, in many state schools, the no grading policy. Several teachers have reported to me at various times on the consequences of such a philosophy. One or two, who insisted on trying to fail or expel a student, came close to being themselves expelled and were overruled. The results of such a no-grading policy are a lack of incentive to learn on the part of most, an inability to see the difference between right and wrong, and an indifference to standards. In such a school, only one door is open, to promotion. One teacher reported that students who are functional illiterates, but still being graduated, feel that society owes them the best of everything. Such students are the products of a no-risk philosophy. Themselves failures, they tolerate no failure in society, in politics, medicine, or elsewhere. What they want must be delivered to them. In varying degrees, this is the philosophy of modern men everywhere. It is productive of malpractice suits, and it is also productive of revolutions. Such an attitude is in fact the product of a great cultural revolution, the rise to power of humanism in the modern world. What appears in malpractice suits is but one tip of a huge iceberg. The result is, of course, that there are no easy answers to the malpractice crisis unless one accepts a growing socialization and control of doctors, together with a minimum risk practice as a solution. A minimum risk or no risk practice will solve no problems, nor will it result in contented patients. It will in fact harm doctors greatly in the long run. The simple fact is that we are at a turning point in civilization. The course of Western culture shifted slowly after 1660 from a Christian to a humanistic foundation. With the French Revolution, that shift became open and explicit. Since World War II, the world has been seeing the triumph of humanism and the suicide of civilization. We are at a turning point in the history of the world. The malpractice crisis is one facet of a world crisis and man's deep rebellion against everything that makes for order. Very plainly, this means that there is no return to the 1930s and 1940s. Our yesterdays led to our todays. Only the suicidal can afford non-involvement in the great task of a new foundation for civilization. The foundation must not be institutional, It cannot be either church or state without unhappy consequences. It must be theological. And it must be Christian. Because the role of a medical practitioner in the biblical tradition is a priestly one, as against the pagan tradition with the doctor as a god, the doctor must be directly involved in rethinking the foundations of culture and society. Not only a man's mind, but his society are involved in his well-being. As a result, the doctor cannot afford to neglect the problem of society. The problems of society not only make his patients ill or give them ulcers, but they also infect and harm medical practice. The sickness of our society is damaging man's view of medicine and of healing. It is also damaging to the medical schools. Racial quotas are always bad, and they have never been more in evidence than now, and applied in the name of equality and tolerance. I have seen a letter from a medical school rejecting, without examination, all out-of-state applications other than those from blacks, Mexicans, and Indians. It has been reported to me that discrimination exists in medical schools against the sons of doctors, and the report came from an authoritative source within a school. I have seen a very superior student, a doctor's son, rejected, and a mediocre student with an unstable recent past accepted. This medical school trend in some respects poses a graver threat than the malpractice suits. The indications of discrimination against the sons of doctors indicates a desire to break with the past and create a new kind of doctor. A major aspect of this problem in the medical school, the courts, and in the minds of men is that a new philosophy of medicine is at work. What men believe will govern what they do. There is an essential relationship between faith and action. We mustn't confuse this element of faith with professions of faith. Thus, most Americans profess to be Christians. When their articles of faith are closely examined, it becomes clear that they are instead humanists. Their actions therefore manifest their humanistic faith. The philosophy of medicine, which is increasingly in evidence, has its roots in a humanistic faith. In this humanistic philosophy, the doctor in socialist states must report to the state on whatever the state wishes to know about his patients. The state claims the right of God to know everything that transpires in every area of life. The idea of a privileged communication between doctor and patient is therefore seen as an antisocial act against society and the state, and it is punishable as a crime. For humanism, medical practice is a social or public service. The doctor, like the politician, the bureaucrat, and the mailman, is engaged in serving, quote, the public, end quote, which in practice means the civil government. As a result, the doctor, if not actually made a part of the civil service, is still subject to civil control. He may indeed lack some of the rights which civil service employees enjoy. Medicine, it is argued by humanists, is too important to the life of the public and the welfare of the state to be uncontrolled. In order to make social justice possible, medical services and personnel must be allocated and planned, or else we have an unequal distribution of services. Like the police, doctors are a necessary social agency, it is declared, and therefore must of necessity be under state jurisdiction. This philosophy of medicine has led, in a number of countries, to socialise medicine. There are no appreciable malpractice suits under socialism, or none at all, if the socialism is an, quote, advanced, end quote, one. To sue a doctor would then mean suing the state, and this is rarely possible. Complaints against doctors, of course, abound under socialised medicine. The difficult conditions imposed by state requirements make adequate medical examination and treatment almost impossible. The state creates the problem, and the state then punishes the doctors as though they were responsible. In the United States, the philosophy of socialised medicine is very prevalent, but we are not yet into fully socialised medicine. Some politicians and all humanists insist, therefore, on seeing the very fact of medicine's limited freedom as the problem. A frame of mind is created whereby medical practice and doctors are seen as a conspiracy against the public. It is in centres of liberal, humanistic faith such as San Francisco and nearby areas that the malpractice syndrome has flourished. Malpractice suits are a rarity, on the other hand, in Bible Belt cities. The temper of such communities is not yet congenial to such suits. In any case, however, for doctors to seek a remedy to the malpractice crisis by going to the state is a serious error. It has been statist pressures which have led to the present degree of state control. From sources within various civil agencies, it is clear that the malpractice crisis was welcomed by the state and federal governments. The readiness to hear the doctor's request had all the same symptoms of the wolf's happy reception to Little Red Riding Hood. The doctors had previously dealt with the state in every negotiation from a position of strength. Now they were negotiating from a position of crisis and weakness. Predictably, the results have not been encouraging for doctors. The medical schools increasingly exemplify a humanistic and statist doctrine of medicine. The state and its courts increasingly move to require it. This, more than malpractice, serious as that crisis is, represents the real problem. For the doctors to be free, they must have a philosophy of medicine and of faith that makes for freedom. Instead, medical practice has moved in the other direction. It has been assumed that the state knows best what medical practice should be. The state licenses doctors. A civil authority passes on drugs and so on. Are civil servants competent in such areas? If the civil authorities can govern medical practice, why not religion and all things else? What special competence of jurisdiction does the state have in areas other than the administration of law with respect to crime and the like? Is it the state or God who is the overall umbrella under whom all things exist? Are we not returning to ancient paganism, where the only government was by the state? Are we forgetting that there are other alternatives? It is these alternatives which we must explore. Simply to fight off attacks is a strategy of retreat. It has no future. The philosophy of medicine must be rethought if doctors are to be free.